I want to take a second to talk a little bit more about additional tips, but these are less additional tips and more just an expansion of what's available. Now, depending on which version of SOLIDWORKS that you purchased, depending on what add-ins are available to you, you want to make sure that you go into add-ins and you take a look at what's there. Now, a lot of times you'll notice that you have things like auto trace and you don't really know what those do, or you might look at some of these add-ins like SOLIDWORKS utilities and you don't really know what they do. The help file is always very handy in trying to figure out what things are, what things do. For instance, auto trace. If you insert a sketch picture into your sketch, auto trace will allow you additional options to try to automatically trace a border around your sketch. It works 50% of the time on high contrast pictures. It's not a very useful tool. It's kind of just in there. But it does work. If you have some black and white pictures with text on them, it can do a very good job of tracing some of that stuff around. Scan to 3D. This is something that is pretty cool if you're dealing with point cloud data, mesh data from 3D scanning. It's not as robust as some of the free or some of the purchase scan softwares like RapidForm or GeoMagic or even the free version MeshLab. It can't do a lot of the mesh manipulation and smoothing that those programs can do, but you can take point cloud or mesh data and work with it, manipulate it, and create some surfaces and things in SOLIDWORKS. The reason that's pretty cool is because there's so much stuff out there. You can do 3D scans with your iPhone nowadays. You can reverse engineer scanners that come with your Xbox Connect. You can use all that information to get 3D scans, and then you really have to figure out what you can do with it. So by default, that's not turned on, but if you go to Scan to 3D and you turn that on, when you go to File, Open, under your file type, now you have mesh files and point cloud files that you can select. So make sure that you take a look at that if you're dealing with that sort of data. Let's go back into the add-ins and let's look at a few more things. CircuitWorks is another cool tool that's built in. It's been around for many years and not a whole lot of people that I know use it, but if you're working with ECAD and MCAD data, so if you're dealing with PCB design that's coming from another program like Altium or something like that, you can bring that information in and create a library of parts and have it create a physical model of the PCB, the traces, the components that you can then use in SOLIDWORKS to do things like run thermal simulations or use it to build your housings around. So that information's in there. It's built into certain versions of SOLIDWORKS. If you have SOLIDWORKS Premium, then you can turn it on and play with it. And again, these things that are included that a lot of people don't turn on or don't look at. Feature recognition on imported parts. If you're just getting into SOLIDWORKS, but you're coming from something else like Inventor, or even if you're coming from CATIA and you're going down to SOLIDWORKS or something like that, FeatureWorks is something that can be handy because it can take imported models and it can try to recognize features like extrudes and fillets and shells and different things that could save you a little bit of time and then you could still update parametrically. Very rarely has it completely been able to recognize a model for me, but a lot of times it recognizes a bunch of features that you can manipulate, like fillets and things like that, and it will save you a little bit of time. Photo view, we talked about a little bit. Some other stuff in here that you may or may not get based on your version of SOLIDWORKS, like simulation and routing and motion. But there's a lot of stuff that, again, is in here that you really should play around with. Another thing I want to talk about is on the Start menu inside SOLIDWORKS. When you go to Start and you go to Tools, and I'll go ahead and I'll drag my Start menu over here. You go to Start and you go to All Programs and you go into SOLIDWORKS. Now, inside of here, you have things like Composer. If you have SOLIDWORKS Inspection, you'll have that information in here. But the standard SOLIDWORKS Tools folder will be there for all installs of SOLIDWORKS. Now, inside here, there are a lot of cool things that you can play with. You have a property tab builder, which allows you a little bit more custom interface, a little bit more flexibility to allow you to create custom properties inside of your files. Now, we've already looked at how to do that by going into the properties in our files, but the custom property tab builder, it's just a new way to do it. It's a new interface to do it. We'll look at that in just a second. We also have things like the performance test. It's kind of cool, especially if you're having some performance issues with SOLIDWORKS on your machine. You can run that and it'll sort of give you a check against where your system falls in line with what SOLIDWORKS wants to have. And you can also upload that and see where you fall in line with other people. So it'll help you figure out if you need more RAM for your system or if your processor is a little slow or whatever the case might be. SOLIDWORKS RX helps you diagnose performance issues and helps you figure out how to fix those problems. Task Scheduler, we talked about that briefly when we were talking about renders, but it can be very handy for more than just rendering. If you open up Task Scheduler, you can do all kinds of things like update custom properties and files. You can run custom tasks. You can convert e-drawings. You can create e-drawings from your files. And what this will do is it'll actually open your physical SolidWorks parts and assemblies and save them out as e-drawing files. And you can have it do this overnight when you're not using your system. So all very handy stuff that you can play with. But let's take a quick look at the Property tab builder. So we'll go ahead and open this. We'll go into All Programs back into SOLIDWORKS 2016, Tools, and we'll go into the Property tab builder. Now, when this opens up, again, it's a very different interface. It allows you to do things a little bit more with creating these group boxes. You can create drop-down lists. You can populate the list with different values. For instance, let's say that one's steel, one's aluminum, one's tie, and you can allow them to manually input custom values. You can show them on the configurations tab, and then you have a drop-down list with those values in it. And this is a great way for people to interact with the models and the custom properties in a little different manner. So if this is something that you decide that you want to do, if you want to really get into creating your custom properties in a different way, look into that Property tab builder. It's included in that tools folder. And it's something that SolidWorks has added in the past couple years, and not many people know it's there. Not many people play with it. So definitely look at it and look at all the things that SolidWorks has to offer. Don't be scared to peek around in the program and look at tools and see what's in your add-ins and so on. So that's it for these additional tips. We'll have one more additional tips video and I'll talk about a few more things. But really the general theme here is to look around and see what you have at your fingertips.